So behind us, we're setting up for this weekend's wedding. It might actually be our penultimate one ever. We've got one more next weekend, and in the last 12 months or so we've turned down, at last count, I think it was about 310, 320 requests for weddings and evening events here, which if you add it all up adds up to the slightly scary number of £1 million, just over actually. So why are we saying no to all this money? Weddings on farms is nothing particularly new or innovative. It's something that we wanted to try as soon as we could, basically on the other side of COVID, and we started saying yes to a few inquiries to the end of 2021 for weddings in 2022. And since then we've had 12. So the final two, 11 and 12, are happening this weekend and next weekend. They've all been amazing. The spaces look totally different each time. Come sort of sunset, you get amazing sunsets over there. It's lit up, there's music, and it's something totally different. This kind of structure with this kind of space doesn't really exist anywhere, let alone within the M25. So you can see why it's really popular. You can see why we get a lot of requests. And each time we post pictures on our socials, and also just guests who've been to events here before, inevitably they see that and they're like, God, that looks cool. They get in touch and they send us emails, how do we book? And we've had a brochure, we've sent it out to a lot of people. But since the end of 2022, we've said no to everybody, which is a surprise, right? And as I say, if you add up all of those inquiries, I think, yeah, 320 or so. We had another one this morning, 321. We rent the space out for about 3.5K for a dry hire weekend, which covers like Friday to Sunday, maybe a little bit on either side. That's over £1 million. Why have we made this decision then? Well, there's 4 main reasons why we've stopped saying yes to new evening bookings. The first one is, so we are a dry hire venue, which essentially means you get the space and nothing else. It was the kind of only option we had to start with. We didn't have any infrastructure beyond the space itself, so no toilets, no furniture, no bar, nothing really. So everything you wanted, you had to bring it in. It gives you a kind of unique opportunity to build your dream wedding on a blank canvas, which you can't do in many places, which is part of the attraction. But it also means there's a huge number of like moving parts completely out of our control. So toilet delivery, ideally it'll come on a Friday afternoon, but if they have staffing issues, it might come on a Thursday. Furniture, ideally will come on a Saturday morning, but it might not come. Then it could come Thursday, Friday as well. Toilets are meant to be collected Sunday morning, but may not be till Tuesday in some cases. So there's a huge number of things which accumulate into something which actually becomes quite disruptive to just general day-to-day operations here. It means I'm kind of tied to the site for 48 hours either side to accept deliveries and show people where to go. And it means that things that we may have planned have to move or change or cancel last minute, particularly gym classes. Like we like to have Pilates in here throughout the summer, 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning, which sometimes is possible, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes, as I say, a furniture delivery or furniture collection might be gone, but they might not pick it up in time, or they might come in the middle of a Pilates class, which is no good for anybody. So dry hire is kind of our biggest strength, but also the biggest weakness we have as well with this space. So the second thing is it's exhausting. So you'd think with dry hire it's a case of rent the venue out, put your feet up and turn up again on the Sunday to check it's all beautifully clean. But the reality is I'm on call for probably 72 hours, be it a ladder, helping people put things up, take deliveries, all that sort of stuff. And it means that come 11 o'clock when the license ends, I'm there to turn the lights on and start helping with the clear up. The band will inevitably take an hour or two to pack their stuff up, and before you know it, it's 1 or 2 in the morning on Sunday morning. We got 10-week-old twins and a 3-year-old currently, and they're not all that sympathetic to me being quite tired on a Sunday. So twins wake up and want feeding at 3 a.m. Kind of got to do that as well. So the all-encompassing sort of nature of it, even though we're in theory quite hands-off, the reality is it's a pretty full-on thing to be a part of, particularly on event day, but also either side of it. So that time commitment, I didn't really factor in how much it would be at the start. We're quite lucky we've not said yes to too many events where it's absolutely killed me, but I think if we had one a week throughout the summer, it would be far too much. And it is just me, like the way we're doing it at the moment, we don't really have extra wiggle room on the booking fee to just employ someone to do this. It also puts a lot of pressure on me. You know, if I'm man down, we've lost our first aider, we've lost our named licensee, so a bit of jeopardy there as well. So I've survived so far, touch wood, get through these last 2 weeks, and then don't have to worry about that too much. So the third thing is, when we started saying yes to bookings in 21-22, this was purely a space which we used for events, pop-up events essentially. We didn't factor in the fact that in the future we might host gym classes in there, which we do. So we now have MFT in there, we now have yoga and Pilates there in the summertime. And obviously we sometimes have to move those classes, cancel them last minute, work around a big pile of furniture which we've moved to the side, which just becomes a bit of a logistical pain really. And also there's obviously a significant amount of gym equipment, kettlebells, weights, plates, racks, all sorts of things which weigh a ton, literally multiple tons, and if we need to move them for a wedding and then move them back, guess who has to do that? It's always me. I can't have that forever. So the great thing about that space is how flexible it is. It's amazing. You can have a wedding one day, a sound bath the next day, an MFT class, Pilates, yoga, all of that, all within a 48-hour period. But also it means there's kind of quite a lot of compromises which have to take place. It's not perfect for all of those things. It's really good for all of them. Like, it's not really a problem, but it's not the best gym it could possibly be, because it's also an event space. It's not the best event space it could also always be, because you kind of have to factor in the fitness side of things. So a lot of compromise going on. I think we really need to focus on keeping it a bit more simple for the next couple of years, just to make sure it works really well for the gym side of things. So the final thing is lead time. So weddings can get booked in sort of 18 to 36 months in advance. In general, we have had inquiries for 2027 already, which is quite mad. And simply, we don't really know what would be selling at that point. And it wouldn't be fair on us to sort of stop and build the business around some future bookings which we'd said yes to. And equally, it's not fair on a couple to book a wedding venue based on it being one thing and turning out to have something completely different in the future. The dry hire basis we've done it on so far is definitely the best way to get started. The most important thing for us was to do a full sort of systems test on logistics, how things work, how they look, what's good, what's bad, what would need to change. But realistically, I think if we're to get back into doing weddings, maybe 2026, 27, we haven't really decided yet. We'll need to do it a lot more on our terms. So we'd invest in infrastructure such as toilets, furniture, other things which don't need to be hired in externally. That makes it easier for couples hiring the space. There's a lot less moving parts for them to deal with, and it makes it easier for us because there's a lot more things under our control, so we're not having to cancel things last minute because of something, because it's essentially all our responsibility. And if we do that, we can then pivot the business on the event side of things. So we're currently a 3.5k dry hire for a weekend. We could then switch that to something like, the market rate for that would be probably 8 to 12k for a day, for a weekend. We could do less of them. We could employ someone to run it, to sell it, manage the whole process. Makes it a little bit easier for us resource-wise, and just makes it a bit more of an easier thing in theory to deal with. But as I say, we're not decided if we're going to go down that route, but if we were to do weddings in the future, it would likely be on that basis. I don't think it would actually make things any more expensive for couples. It just means they would get it all for us, all from us, as opposed to 25 different places. But yeah, it's quite an interesting conundrum we're in. And if we were to go down that route, we could then employ someone probably to become effectively an on-site events manager. They can deal with the sort of the sales side of things, the day-to-day management of events. But we'd obviously still be around, but it takes that pressure off it being solely on me, should I say, be incapacitated for whatever reason. And we could do it on more of a known basis. So we could say allocate 8 weekends a year for weddings. We know when they'll be, we can sell those, and that's it, job done. As opposed to 2 years ago, we were kind of saying not quite yes to everything, but yes to most things, because we just really wanted to try lots of new things, because we didn't know what was going to work. We didn't know if weddings would be a popular thing in there or not, and the only way to do it is to try it. We know it does work now, so we don't have that pressure of sort of trial and error. It's a case of doing it as well as we possibly can, I guess. You might be wondering how we do these things from a licensing and planning point of view. So in 2022 we applied for and got a full premises license. That covers the cafe, which means we can sell beer to cyclists and our little Friday night acoustic music events, that sort of thing, and it also covers the hangar. And the great thing about that for the hangar is it gave us some sort of known parameters within which we could work. So the hardest thing, if you've got bookings coming in for 2 years in advance. You don't know if you'll be allowed to do it, if you can keep doing them with temporary event notices as we were initially, and you know what restrictions may come into place in 1, 2, 3 years time, whatever. The premises license, so we worked on that with the council, the local police, fire, all that sort of thing, environmental health, and that just clearly lays out what we can and can't do. So effectively we're allowed to do 20 events a year with amplified music, 60 evening events in total, so that could include things like a pop-up restaurant or something with a little bit of acoustic music in the background. So to be fair, that's like more than we'd ever need. Like if you think 20 weekends of evening events, it's pretty much summer only we're going to use that space. So that's basically every weekend in the summer if we wanted to, which we don't really, to be fair. And yeah, we've got our sound system in there, which is fully approved, and all the music goes through that. So that's a headache which we don't have to worry about now, which is nice. And then things like the marquee behind, so most weddings have an additional like external structure, a stretch tent, a marquee, a teepee, that sort of thing, just for a bit of extra covered seating, and that's all allowed under the 56-day permitted development rights for temporary structures, so that can just come up and come down. Most years we use between sort of 8 and 16 days of that, so basically that will be up for 3 days, which is 3 of those 56 days. We've got another one next weekend, so that'll be 6 days. That's probably it for the year, so maybe 6 to 8 days. Yeah, it's handy having that right under permitted development, just to put up temporary structures and take them down on farmland, which makes life a bit easier. So there you go, that is kind of how we've done evening events here so far. It's been a lot of fun. I think I've really noticed there's quite a lot of fear and dread and trepidation in the lead up to these sort of things. It's obviously a lot of pressure to host someone's wedding, particularly when we'd never had any before. Having said that, actually, turns out someone did have a wedding here 20 years ago. They got in touch, it was quite cool. They got in the garden. My grandparents organised that. Yeah, come 10 o'clock, the sun is setting, everyone is happy, the music is out, and it's amazing. People absolutely love it. It's something totally different. As I say, there's nothing like this anywhere nearby. When can you have a wedding reception in a World War II blister hanger inside central London that you can get an Uber home from? It's a pretty cool setup. For now, we're pivoting a little bit, so we're starting to say yes to more midweek corporate stuff. So we've got a fair few booked in this summer, mostly on Thursdays. It's easier for us to work around. That'll be, say, 10 till 5 on a Thursday. A group come down, they'll have some meetings, presentations. We can lay on yoga, lunch, go for a walk, some mindfulness, breath work, that sort of thing. Have some beers, bit of music, game of football, game of rounders, that sort of thing. Works much easier for us on a sort of logistical point of view, from a time point of view, having 3 young children. We're going to give that a proper go for the next 2-3 years, instead of doing weddings effectively, and then who knows, maybe we'll get back into it. Are you thinking about it? Have you done this at your farm? Have you had a similar experience to us? If you're thinking about getting into it at all, just let us know. Please drop questions below, Instagram us. We've learned tons, as you would expect, in the last couple of years about things to do, things not to do, and you know, would we recommend it? I don't regret anything to date. It's all been amazing, but I am glad that we've only got 2 more left, because I don't know if I could handle any more, but it's cool. I don't know. And final thing, every time we have a band in there, everyone's like, when are you going to have a festival? We're not going to have a festival. We do kind of have a festival, but it's called Friday Nights at the Barn, and it's someone singing and playing guitar, and it's a lot more chilled. But yeah, I don't think we're going to have any festivals. Too much to do. Too much to go wrong. Sounds expensive. Don't know. Yeah, not yet anyway. Maybe one day. No, I'll regret that. And a couple of additions that I forgot to mention. Number one, yes, we do need the money. It's not like we're turning down £1 million because we have £1 million in the bank. We're still very much at the stage of the business where we can't even afford to pay ourselves. So we're trying to replace that revenue with the corporate stuff and a few other things. Longer term, we will need to sort of refill that revenue stream. It's just a necessary thing to stop it whilst we kind of reassess and reevaluate. And the second thing, obviously, the thing I haven't mentioned, like, so obviously having evening events is generally great. We've been really lucky so far. Had no problems, no antisocial behaviour, no littering, no problems at all like that. But reality is, at the end of a wedding, got 150 drunk people who are leaving the premises between like 11 and 12 at night. It's slightly noisy. It's a bit of a pain, and everyone's effectively in our garden. It's slightly further away, but you know, if you'd imagine having that every week, it's not perfect, like it's not really a problem, but it's just sort of thing you can't really escape, which is why we don't want to have events every week. It's probably something we can do in terms of like crowd management and the way people go to leave, but the reality is you can't really enjoy your Saturday night if there's a wedding going on, and it's obviously part of the process, but it is a real factor that we have to consider, because it's a lot of people effectively in the garden, and with young children, etc. It's just a bit of a factor, which is obviously easier in a daytime environment. But yeah, there you go. That's what I forgot to say.